Hi, my name is Marco Imperati. I'm a medical device representative for a company in the Northeast. I'm really excited to make this video for you, and I hope it helps you on your path in whatever you plan on doing. Question one: what kind of medical device rep am I, and what kind of training did that involve? So I'm a medical device rep for surgical products, which means that I represent a series of products that are used in operating rooms or different health facilities in the Northeast. And they're used intraoperatively, which means they're used on patients during surgery, in various types of surgeries, not just one specialty. And my job is to represent those products with the hospital, to educate the staff and surgeon who's going to be using the products, to ultimately so they can impact their patients in a positive way. So the training that was involved with getting this position was a series of interviews. Obviously, there was interest with an open position, and then a series of interviews after that. The first interview was on the phone with who would be my hiring manager, and it was just basically like a greeting, like just getting to know each other and figuring out if I was going to be a fit to be moved on in the process. And then after that, there was a face-to-face interview with my hiring manager, and then ultimately with the next stage was a one-on-one in-person interview with the vice president of the east of the country. After getting the job, then there was maybe about 2 months of training, where we started with home training, just online every day, taking tests, learning clinically about all the procedures that my products potentially could be used in. So once we learn clinically, then we can start to learn where our products can be beneficial within those procedures. And then there was some field training. Field training was basically me going out into the field with another rep who's basically doing the job that I would be doing, and shadowing that rep to see what every day is like and all different types of aspects of the position. And then I was ready to be on my own in my territory. So a typical day for me usually starts very early. The job, especially working in hospitals, is an early job. Usually if I'm going to be working with a staff or a surgeon in surgery, first procedure for that surgeon usually starts around 7:30 in the morning. So depending on where I'm going, I always want to give myself enough time. So that involves driving to the hospital, getting to the hospital, signing into the hospital, changing into the hospital scrubs, and then always looking to see where the procedure is going to be, going to that room, and always making sure that I'm there early to introduce myself, especially if it's a new hospital, new staff, or new surgeon. I always want to make sure that I'm introducing myself, letting them know why I'm there, especially going there because I was asked to be there by the staff or the surgeon. Just always want to make sure that you're respectful to that environment. And then it involves talking to the surgeon before the case, asking them, again, is it okay that I'm there? And observing the procedure and being a resource to them when it comes time in the procedure to use one of my products. If it's the first time that I'm working with that doctor, then I'm definitely staying there for the duration of the procedure if it's okay with them. And then after, I always want to get a few minutes with that doctor or the staff to find out, hey, how was it using the product today? Was there, getting some feedback? Was there anything that you would change about using it? Is there anything that I can help with it? And absolutely facilitate that education within the procedure and then after. If it's a surgeon that I've worked with before, then there might be times where I'm stepping out of the room and I may be doing some other things. So part of the job, which I really like, is being very flexible and doing many things at the same time sometimes. So I would check on my inventory, check on if the hospital needs to order more of the product. I would share that with people that work in supply chain or materials managers. Maybe I'll check in with some nurses to see if they're in need of any education. And often I'm not just staying at one hospital throughout the day. Sometimes it involves me, if the procedure is not too long, it might involve me going to another hospital and doing some of the same thing that I did earlier that morning. Or sometimes it might just be me making appointments, going to doctor's offices. Sometimes I'm in servicing the staff, which means I'm getting there early and I'm working with the staff before their day starts, in just an educational aspect. It really changes, but I would say the bulk of my week is usually spent in the hospital, with a little bit spent in some offices. Sometimes we're spending a lot of time in the car, and that's the bulk of the day. Question 3: what made you decide to go into your field, and did you always know what it was meant to be? So did I always know that I was going to be a medical device rep? Well, the short answer is no, absolutely not. I have always been very passionate about teaching, coaching, mentoring, helping others be successful. And I think that's still something that drives me today, is helping people that I work with be successful. Initially, when I went to my undergraduate in college, I was interested in those same aspects, and that led me to education and want to become a teacher. And I was able to fulfill a lot of those aspects of life that really make me happy, with helping children become successful and coaching and teaching. Ultimately, I think what led me to be doing what I'm doing now is I was in search of more flexibility, being able to grow. And I think there's been an aspect of me that has always wanted to work with a large company where I can ascend and there is a ladder where that I can grow. And that's been very exciting. And I'm able to take those components of education, apply them into my job right now. Question number 4: which courses in college did you find most beneficial in preparing you for your career path? In college, some of the elective courses I took in college are just fundamental, and I think in any line of work, but specifically about what I'm doing right now. So for me, when I was in college, my major was exercise science with a focus on teaching. But there are specific courses within exercise science like anatomy and physiology, so understanding the body, kinesiology, understanding movement, were just some courses that stick out and that were really the base of sometimes just being in the operating room and trying to understand maybe what I'm looking at when I'm looking at a monitor, and there's a surgery going on. And which helps me now understand how my products could be most impactful for that specific surgeon and procedure. But I think the most important probably course that I took was just communications. So communications 101, where you're learning how to present, you're learning how to listen well and speak well in front of small and large groups. I think that can help in all lines of work. So that's definitely a fundamental course. Question number 5: what extracurricular activities did you participate in outside of regular coursework? So, extracurricular activities that I was involved in even before going into college and then throughout college, big part of me wanted to become a fireman. I was a volunteer firefighter. Again, always had that team, that collaborative part of me had always wanted to work with others, and help others, and that's something that I still rely on. I was also involved in coaching for a long time. I grew up playing a variety of sports, so that's something that I really enjoy doing with younger children and then with high school students. Question number 6: how did you maintain focus to study and prepare for your exams? I find that there is not one way to focus on exams that works for everyone. And a lot of times I found out the hard way, because I would maybe try to replicate ways that worked for my friends or some classmates, but ultimately I had to learn the way that was best for me. For me, I like to look at the entire puzzle, and then kind of work my way down from start big and then get small. So what I mean by that is, if I'm studying for an exam, I like to take all the notes that I have for the exam, and usually I would go back and rewrite them, so then I could really look at what's most important. And actually, by rewriting, I found that I was able to learn something again, because now I'm seeing it for a second or maybe a third time, and it would help me focus on those small aspects, and would actually help me remember things a lot better leading up to an exam. I also found that verbalizing things out loud is really helpful, and I did not do that enough, but I do that a lot now for my job, where if I'm thinking about a conversation that I'm going to have with someone, just thinking it, whereas you may think that you have everything down, but actually just saying it out loud is really helpful, because you're hearing it come out. Now, and something that's really helpful is I would call others occasionally. Now I'll do it with my teammates that I work with. I'll call them up and just say, hey, do you have 5 minutes? I wanted to run this conversation by you and just see how it sounds to you, which has been really helpful. And in college, I would record myself with studying the notes for my exam, which is really helpful, because then I could go back and listen to it. So additional interest for me, I mentioned earlier about the car time that I get, going to an account, or driving home. I found that some podcasts have been really helpful to listen to, in all lines of not just what I'm currently doing, but I love hearing about just what other successful people have been listening to, or that are talking about. So different TED Talks are great. One podcast that I recommend is called How I Built This. It's a lot of different entrepreneurs, but there's a lot of companies that that we're all really used to hearing about in our life. It could be anyone from Starbucks to Coca-Cola to Uber. It could be anything like that. But the creators of these businesses will come on, and they'll talk about from starting from the ground up, how they were able to start this. And I get a ton of value out of listening to that. And I've also listened to Tony Robbins, and I think it's really insightful. Very his perspective on just life and dealing with different challenges has been super, super valuable. I think one important suggestion for anyone who's listening to this is find a mentor, someone that can help listen, someone that can share some knowledge, someone that you could bounce things off of. Very, very important. And just finding someone and having them talk, I think, is the beginning. But really, when you find, I think, different mentors, especially that work in a variety of professions, I think it really broadens and helps. It helps you kind of uh, pick at different things that you might be thinking about. So when I talk to people that are in other professions, even if we don't do the same thing, I think it's always really important to understand um, successful people, what their process is, what were their goals, and just get their perspective. And even if we're not totally in line with the way we think, that's actually fine. That's really fine. Because I think the hard part sometimes in going down a career path is um, hearing no, is putting yourself through some different challenges, and I think especially that comes through asking for feedback, which is huge. Um, you have to be able to put yourself out there, and putting yourself out there means asking questions, um, doing things that are uncomfortable. So it might be um, speaking up. It might be challenging yourself to identify a weakness, or if someone else identifies a weakness for you, working at that weakness, and then be humble enough to go back and um, see where you've improved or where you have not improved. Um, and I think the last few things that are important is you. It's really important to be yourself. And what that means is anytime you're in front of someone, whether it be in an interview, in a conversation, if you're thinking about a job, you have to be yourself, because authenticity truly does shine through, and people are able to see someone who is being genuine and being themselves and someone who is not. And usually, what I find is that really shows when someone is relaxed, when they're excited about whatever they're doing. It's usually because they're being themselves, which would then lead to you wanting to do your absolute best in whatever you're doing.